Hello everyone, this is Shahrooz from UMass, and I'm going to talk to you about our research on the analysis of the consequences of gTLD expansion of ICANN. This is a collaboration work with Ahmad, Suleman, Phillipa, and Rishab from University of Iowa, Wisconsin, and UMass. Let's talk a little about the history of gTLDs. ICANN, or Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers, is the organization which is responsible for administrating the Internet domain name system. The role very generally is about the authority for establishing new top-level domain names. When I say top-level domain names, I mean generic top-level domain names. In this talk, we are not going to talk about the country code or very specific TLDs which are reserved for internet infrastructure like .arpa. We will talk about just generic top-level domain names. By the end of the year of 2000, we had around 7 gTLDs. And since starting in 1998, ICANN it started a more open gTLD program. When I say open, that means they allow private entities to also act as registries and manage new gTLDs. So following a public call for proposals in year 2000, and after a 2-month period for public comment, I can announce 7 new gTLDs. So we had, by end of the year of 2012, we had 20 gTLDs, and 15 of those gTLDs are, active, and they were active at that time. So that was a good progress in new gTLDs. In 2008, and citing the success of previous gTLD expansion in 2000 and 2004, ICANN approved new policies to facilitate the large-scale creation of new gTLDs. So the goal of the program was to enhance the innovation, competition, and consumer choice, and basically that help people to register domain names with more specific gTLDs. So by the end of 2012, we had around 1,900 applications, and among those applications, today we have around 1,208 gTLDs, which they are still active today. Although there have been many positive outcomes from this expansion, there also have been some unintended consequences, and we are not the first people who are investigating the consequences of new gTLDs. For example, this paper is showing. This paper is analyzing the web content hosted by domains with new gTLDs, and they found that higher incidence rates of malicious contents like malware on domain names with new gTLDs in compared to domain names with all gTLDs. Or in this paper, the authors look at the spam domain names with new gTLDs, and they show that the number of spam domain names is increasing after new gTLD expansion. And in this paper, we showed that this expansion program also create and give more chance and opportunity for malicious actors to leverage and exploit the trust placed by users in trusted brands or target domain names, a concept which we call it typosquatting is the practice of registering domain names that are typos or visually similar to target domain names. And these target domain names usually are those websites with significant traffic. And individuals or organizations or people who register typosquatting domain names, we call them typosquatter in this talk. And the problem of typosquatting is getting worse by the fact that domain names are a source of trust, and users usually trust the target domain names because they have HTTPS and certificate link them. And when you have a typo domain name and you design your website as the target domain names, then users trust their website. And typosquatting can be used for many purposes, like what I have shown here. They can be used for downloading a malware on user's host, or you can use typosquatting for domain parking, a concept or a service which you just register a typo domain name and then you try to sell it to some people who wants to own that typo domain name. Or the typosquatting can be used for phishing, and then you can steal money from users. So while typosquatting is not a new concept, and there are many studies which analyze the incidence rate of typosquatting in the context of original gTLDs. There has been little attention to typosquatting using new gTLD. So this is our goal in this paper, to investigate the concerns which we have regarding typosquatting with new gTLDs. And imagine you want to use the exact target domain name like I have shown here. You don't need to have a typo domain name. Already you have more than 1,000 new gTLD to register the target domain name with new gTLDs, and you have more chance to have a typo domain names which is more similar to target domain names. Our overall objective is to understand how ICANN gTLD expansion impact brand trusted by internet users. A brief outline. I will describe gTLDtm, or the gTLD typosquatting monitor system, an open source framework which we have developed, and it is doing the internet scale measurement to identify when popular and target domain names are victim of typosquatting, which parties are responsible for facilitating typosquatting, and what is the cost associated with preventing typosquatting with new gTLDs. And we will uncover the mechanics of typosquatting, like the types of content and domains that are targeted by typosquatting, the role of mass registrars or advertisers in the typosquatting ecosystem, the rate of typosquatting, and the intent behind typosquatting, and the cost which a victim needs to pay to defend against typosquatting. I will explain the main component of our typosquatting monitor system. The input to the system is a list of domain names. It could be the Alexa top domain names in different categories, which you just the system is using the API, the Alexa API, to fetch the top domain names in different categories. Or you can give a list of custom domain names in a file to the system. The monitoring system has different components. It has a typo generation, data generation, a database, and also a typo identifier, and also a typo cost estimator. And I will explain how these components are interacting with each other. So giving a base domain name, we first generate typo candidates using 6 typosquatting generation methods, like replacement, omission, or repetition, and different typo generation methods which you can see in related work. These typo generations are common, and we are actively working on adding more typo generation methods to the system for future monitoring. Then for each generated typo candidate, we get some data from the internet, like the whois record, which shows if the typo candidate has been registered or not. The records are the registrar, the organization, the contact email address, the date of registration of the typo in the DNS system, We also get the DNS records like A or MX or NS records by querying Google's public DNS server. And we also get the zone files from ICANN CZDS repository. And also we get the web content of the registered typo domain names and typo domain names which they have available HTML content. We use OpenWPM framework to browse the web content and save the HTTP header and HTML content and everything which is related to HTML. And also we ask GoDaddy about the price of typo domain names which hasn't been registered. So for each typo candidate which hasn't been registered, we ask GoDaddy about the price which this service is advertising for that typo domain name. All of this information is being saved in a database, and then we use the data to identify typosquatting, which in the next slide I will explain how do we define a typosquatting domain name. And also we estimate the amount of money which brand holders need to pay to protect from typosquatting. We define the typosquatting at a high level. We say that a typo domain is being squatted if the entity which is owning the base domain doesn't also own the typo domain name. So for identifying the owner of the domain name, we use the registrar record of the whois records, and if for those typo domain names which we don't have the registrar domain names, in very rare cases we use the DNS infrastructure information as the owner of the typo domain name. And so what's the rate of typosquatting using new proposed gTLDs? We find that 93% of registered typo candidates, they are being used for typosquatting, and only 7% of the typos are being registered as typos for defense or protection. And the second thing is that it is really expensive for brands to protect themselves by defensive registrations. And in the next slides, we show that what makes target domain names vulnerable to typosquatting. So in other words, what is the relation between the length, the category, the rank of the base domain names to be used for typosquatting. We use two approach to show the relationship between different properties of the base domain name and number of typosquatted domain names for them. So we use first we use a linear regression and correlation to measure the relationship between the variables. The variables, I said, the length of the base domain name, the category which the base domain name is belong, or the rank of the domain name on the Alexa, and number of available typo domain names for that target domain name. We also use machine learning models on base domain name characteristics and measure the nature of each characteristics on typosquatting. We found that there is a significant relationship between a base domain bit length and also the rank of the domain name and the risk of being typosquatted. So in our analysis, we find that the category of the domain name is not very important to affect number of typo domain names for a base domain name. So when considering the individual features, the rank of the domain name is the most predictive feature. This suggests that higher ranked domain names are more common target for typo squatters. And we show that how quickly do brands perform defensive registrations. So in this plot on the y-axis we have the fraction of registered typo domain names, and on the x-axis we have the time passed after releasing post 2012 gTLDs in months. And we use the creation date entry in each typosquatting candidate domain whois records. And also we had the data of the releasing of each gTLD. So gTLD delegation date based on ICANN. And we try to understand the amount of time that passes between the availability of typosquatting domain name and also the registration by brands and typosquatters. So these figures shows that it shows the number of typosquatting as a function of time. We find that in the cases where brands do make defensive registrations to prevent typosquattings, a majority happen within the first year of delegation of the gTLDs. In very rare cases, typosquatters are left behind. In fact, 40 and 98% of typosquatted domain names using the most popular gTLDs. The gTLDs which are very popular in typo domain names, they are being registered within the first month and the year of their public availability. And next we show how typosquatters they select typo candidates. And this plot is showing the fraction of registered typo domain names as a function of edit distance. Edit distance is the distance from the typo candidate from the base domain name. And we show that around 80% of the registered typo domain names, they have edit distance, a short edit distance, less than 2 from the base domain name. And this is interesting because if you know the typo generation method which is giving you this typo domain names with this edit distance, then you know that which typo generation method is more interesting for typosquatters. And you can, as a brand holder, as a person, you want to do defensive registrations, you will pick those typo candidates which are in that category, the category of typo candidates generated by that typo generation method. In our analysis, we find that the typo generation omission that you just drop a letter from the base domain name is the typo generation methods which generate this kind of typo domain names. And the next slide, in order to show how typosquatted domain names are being used, we use some machine learning and clustering and manually tagging process to find how typosquatted domain names are being used for typosquatters. And in this table, we show the different labels which we had for all of the clusters which we had. So the clustering is happening on the web content which we get from the OpenWPM framework. And we show that around 75% of typosquatted domain names, they are hosting the content which is not provided by the base domain name, and or the typo domain names are being listed for sale using domain parking. On average, just less than 4% of the all typosquatted domain names, they are being parked or they are being redirected to their base domain names. And we also see that typosquatted domain names using post 2012 gTLDs, they are more likely to host content from parties which are not, the content is not related to the base domain name. And also we show what's the cost of complete protection from typosquatters. To identify the cost of a domain name which hasn't been registered or unowned domain name, we just randomly sampled unowned domain names from the list of the typo candidates which we have, up to edit distance 3 away from the base domain name. So we are limited to by the number of queries which we can ask GoDaddy API service, because we can do 60 queries per minute, and we just ask the price for typo candidates with edit distance 3 away from the base domain name. So these plots show the price of the typo domain names as a function of edit distance from base domain, broken by gTLD era. And we show that, for example, a brand holder, if you want to register all of the typo candidates with edit distance 0 away from the base domain, it needs to pay $60,000 for post 2012 gTLDs, and it's a huge, because it's just for typo edit distance 0. And considering all of the gTLD eras, we see that the amount of money, the price of typo candidates with new gTLDs is higher than gTLD in different categories. If I want to conclude my presentation on our research, we developed a framework which is monitoring the internet scale, monitoring and doing internet scale measurement to monitor the internet about typosquatting with new gTLDs. We showed that the typosquatting rate is high by new gTLDs, and we showed that the mass registrars and advertisers, they use typosquatting for seeking to monetize and both trademark and typo domain names. And our work also showed that the cost for brands to protect their own trademarks from typosquatters to be is unreasonably high. Now, I think at this moment I'm ready to take any question. Thank you.